It's time! Welcome back once again. If you're coming back, you might be listening for the first time. In which case, welcome to the upgrade. My name is Gary Muttley. He is
Len Carmichael, and we have Mr. John Wren on today because we are going to be taping another episode of It's Time.
This is where you need the soundbite where it's Bruce Buffer just yells. It's another episode of It's Time, and then we can get sued by the UFC.
Well, I mean, you clearly haven't been listening to all the episodes we've recorded. This is clearly information that must be known. You didn't even click on them, because if you did, you'd know that the intro of It's Time is Bruce Buffer yelling "It's time."
No, I have, but that's where you do it. There,
No. You can't double down on that.
whole fancy schmancy intro shit.
So anyway,
No, I'm an egomaniac. I listen to my own episodes.
You listen over and over and over.
you know what? I would not doubt that. So, early prelim card, I didn't watch any of this, but I did go back and I kind of took a look at some of the important pieces. So, the Miles Johns Anderson Dos Santos KO was fucking insane. Did either of you happen to catch that?
I did not.
The UFC shared that on their stories, and that's
Right.
the only reason I saw it. And maybe it was Dana's phone. I have no idea, but they showed it from like the seats, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Like, and it was quiet, so you can't hear Rogan or whoever the hell was doing a commentary, DC and whatnot. You just hear the fucking shot, and I'm like, Jesus. And that's all I needed to see of it. I didn't care about the rest of the fight. I'm like, I saw the money shot, so.
Yeah, I didn't see the rest of the fight, but that was so. On Saturday, Gary and I went to see some wrestling, and I was back and forth watching fights.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that later.
Right, I was back and forth watching fights on my phone while the wrestling event was like in between matches and etc. And I was like, "Oh, Gary, did you see that knockout?"
Ooh.
Yeah, you must have just saw it.
I just watched it, and I was gonna just watch it with the sound off, but since John mentioned the sound, I was like, let me watch it with the sound on, and
Yeah.
I was like, ooh,
That right hand was sensitive.
oh, that dude's sleeping.
You know, that was maybe next time I'll watch Miles Johns. I'll know to like actually pay attention when he's fighting. But when I looked at this undercard, the only fight that I cared about was the Manel Cop fight. But when I saw that he missed weight and that they had to make it a catch weight fight, I was just like, I don't even care. I don't even care because you don't take your job seriously enough to show up at the weight in which you agreed to.
Well, somebody took down the video of that finish.
Speaking of
I'll have
which,
to find it somewhere else.
one side note not from this event, but the previous event, Nico whatever the hell her name is.
Montano.
She's in Its Time because that fucking girl can't make weight for shit. She went up in weight class and still missed weight by fucking 7 pounds.
Really?
Yeah.
She got cut by the UFC.
And it was she won the Ultimate Fighter like 3 years ago, and she fought once since then.
Yep.
And lost. I think she lost that fight.
Yep.
So she's completely useless. Goodbye.
Well, look, don't sign a contract for a weight that you can't make.
Exactly.
If you say, like, all right, so if I say to my job, you know, I'm just going to show up and I'm not going to actually do the things that you want me to do. I'm not going to do any of it. Maybe I'll fight once in a while, but, you know, whatever. That doesn't work that way. You sign the contract, and the two things that you're required to do are make weight and get in the cage and let the door shut. Anything else beyond that is whatever. You cannot train at all and come in on weight and walk in and get your ass beat in the first 10 seconds, and you still did your job because you signed the contract to make the weight and get in the cage. That's it. And this Manel cop, I think this is the second time he's missed weight since he's been here, and he's only been here for 3 fights. Like, I'm done. I I know you're probably a good fighter, but if you can't make weight, I don't care. And I'm just not going to care.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I'm so tired of people missing weight.
It just shows that you don't care at all about your job.
No,
you don't care about us as fans, etc.
It's the basics.
Honestly, I wish that the commissions would get together to tighten up the ability to put weight back on. Put in a bunch of deterrents so people have to fight at their actual weights.
Yep.
So that you're not trying to cut 20 pounds. If you weigh 160 pounds, you're fighting at 160 pounds, maybe 155 pounds, whatever. 5 pounds, I think shit moves that weight. But I don't want to hear about Anderson Silva or John Jones coming down from 215 to fight at 185. I don't want to hear that shit anymore. Or Anthony Johnson.
I was just gonna say Anthony Rumble Johnson.
Anthony Johnson weighs 325 and he was up to 170.
Yeah,
Jesus, man.
Yeah, I mean, I remember at one point AJ was 227 and he had to cut to 170.
Yeah,
ridiculous the cuts that guy used to make.
They're dude,
how did that dude not seriously cause himself harm?
He probably has. He's probably got damage. He probably took some years off his life doing that shit.
I would agree that nobody should be allowed to lose any more than 10 pounds of their walking weight.
Yeah.
Five seems like that means at that point you can't really even do cardio, because doing cardio for your entire camp could easily take 10 pounds off.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
But these 20, 30, 40 pound weigh-ins, they win at 145, and by the time they get in the cage, they're 180, 185. I'm you're not a 145er.
No. It doesn't make sense to seeing them do those crazy cuts and
that's what made Frankie Edgar so good at the time that he was good, was that he was cutting no weight. He was I'm just fighting at 155.
Right.
And you could tell that he was an actual 155er because some of the people that he fought just dwarfed
huge.
Him. When he fought Gray Maynard, Gray Maynard was 2 of them.
Yeah. Yep. And when Gray Maynard hit him, I thought he might die, and then all of a sudden, Gray Maynard faded, and then I thought Gray Maynard was gonna die.
Yeah.
Oh God.
He's a fighter that I just don't miss being around. I never liked that guy.
Gray Maynard?
Yeah, I really something about him.
Never cared for him either. I don't hate the dude, but I was never a fan at all.
So, all right, back to the card. Going into this card, I had 2 people in mind that I thought might be in its time, and one of them didn't make it to an its time call, but the other one definitely did. And it's Karolina Kowalkiewicz, and she fought Jessica Penne. Jessica Penne basically ran right through her. I think it's time. Well, she's sucked since she went on her 10-0 run or whatever she was, and then lost to Joanna. Well, she hasn't had anything.
I think she won twice after she fought Joanna. But then she's lost the last 5 in a row.
Yeah, it's just ugly.
Well, she may be retiring anyway. I follow her on Instagram. She posted a story. She did it all in Polish, so I had no idea what she said. But someone
wait, you don't speak Polish?
No, not today. Maybe
not today. Maybe tomorrow.
But she
we'll check in next week.
She posted something very emotional, and I was I wonder what she. I was man, I wish I knew what she was saying. Sometimes she does do like an English translation, but most of the time she just does in her native language, and she just leaves it be, and she, and that's fine. That's where she's from. That's the language she speaks.
Right.
Someone translated it on MMA Junkie or whatever, and basically she said that I think I have to find a new passion, and that really bothers me. She's like, I have to make that, I have a hard decision to make, like something along those lines. So she might be pulling the plug herself anyway. And if the UFC cuts her, which is a very real possibility,
yeah,
she just lost. No disrespect to Jessica Penne, that girl was gone for like what, almost like 4 years.
No, 20 months.
2 years for her pissing hot,
yep.
and she got steamrolled. Like and 5 in a row, losing 5 in a row. There's not many people that stay on for losing 5 in a row. You have to be five in a row,
and 3 of them were decisions.
Yeah, you have to be like an absolute fan favorite. And while she's easy on the eyes and she was an exciting fighter, she's not anymore. And there's no way she has like some Euro following that's really driving her to still have a job there. Like I have a feeling that
I agree.
Give it a week, and the UFC will have cut her. And if the UFC cuts her, she might just retire.
She might just be done. Yeah, she's certainly not bringing in enough money to be worth keeping around.
Yeah.
She's also posted. She got married last year. She's also been posting about how she like wants kids and shit. Like now's the time. Now's the time to do it before you're 40.
Right.
Like get out of the game, save your face, remember your kid's name when it's older. Like.
Well, I mean, she's 35.
Yeah.
And it's not even that. So you could have 5 losses in a row, but you have to have been facing top competition for me to be like, all right, maybe one more before I'm like, all right, fine, you gotta go. But okay, she lost to Andrade, and then she lost to Michelle Waterson, who is undersized for the weight division.
Right.
Like, if you can't beat Michelle Waterson, that means you need to step down in competition. Not that Michelle is bad, because she's not, but she's an atom weight fighter who's fighting 10 pounds above what she should be.
Right.
And that automatically puts her at a disadvantage. And then she loses Alexa Grasso and Jan Shonen, and now Jessica Penne, who barely has been around for 2 years. It's time. Go, please.
I agree.
And it's not that I don't like Carolina. I have no issue with her on any personal level, but I just do not ever want to watch her fight again.
I agree with you. I don't think she's all that interesting. And like we were saying, lost her last 5, decisions on 3 of the last 5 against, just like you guys were saying, not even top talent.
Yeah.
It's just done.
Not
but
even just walking papers. Like, I think you should. There's something else for you to do that isn't this.
Well, like I said, she basically said that. Like, if you're having that thoughts where you're saying like, I need to find I don't have the passion for this anymore. Like, this isn't a sport you can play. Like, you have to be in it. Like, it's you're all in or you're all out. Like, you're getting.
Well, Mr. Miyagi said it. Yeah. Either all in or all out. You walk in the middle, squished like bug.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you take it back a little bit, she's lost 7 of her last 10.
Yeah.
So that doesn't help anything either.
Yeah, this is an ugly number.
So that was it as far as the prelims, right? Or
I was watching.
Anything else we want to talk about in the prelims?
I watched most of Faiza versus Bobby Green. You were kind of like peeking in over my shoulder while I had it sitting on the pole. I had it 2-1 for Bobby Green, in my opinion. Like, I thought that Bobby Green won both rounds 1 and 2, and Faiza kind of came on hard in the last round. Obviously, the judges didn't see it the way I saw it, but I also don't think it was a robbery. So
the judge that gave it 30-27 is a fucking idiot. But
It was definitely not a
he
27.
he got interviewed by like MMA Mania or maybe MMA Fighting, one of those two websites, and he tried to defend his 30-27 thing, and I was like, no, you should never fucking like ref or judge another fight ever again. Like that dude's.
So he's getting its time.
Yeah, that guy, whatever that fucking guy is. It might have been his first event that he ever judged. Get the fuck out of here. You're done.
Maybe he came from the NHL.
Yeah. So otherwise, I Ed Herman, like, you didn't even know he was still fighting, Gary.
I didn't even know he was still fighting.
I don't even know what happened.
He lost.
He lost.
And all of those, except for that women's fight we were just talking about, all of the other prelims all were decision fights.
So I'll say Ed Herman's in its time, and I think Ed Herman was in its time a few fights ago. Like I know he wins some stuff, but if you watch him now, from the Ultimate Fighter when he fought like Kendall Grove and all that stuff, like he was like in everything. He was like he wasn't great at anything, but he was good at like pretty much everywhere.
Right.
And he had some explosiveness. His cardio was good. He was a grinder. He was in it until either he got knocked out or he submitted or whatever. He was always in the fights. He is so fucking slow now.
Yeah,
but
really? It's bad.
He took like a chunk of time off, and he came back like after like I was like, holy shit, he's like fighting again. Like I just thought he retired. And every fight since that fight, and we're probably going on like 2 years now that he's been doing this. Like since he did his like comeback, and every fight he's just so like. Everything just looks telegraphed. I'm like, if he fights anyone with like any like explosiveness, they're gonna like expose him in like 3 seconds because he has no pace to keep up. He just I don't know. Like I don't know what he's doing. Like I don't know what is his goal, just to make money as long as he can. Like he has no path to a title shot. He's clearly on a huge decline. I don't know. I would love to know what his like fucking paychecks are. Like, is he even cut? Is he hitting six figures? Like what is he? Like I don't know.
I don't even know.
Just go open a gym and fucking teach people. Like I would say he's not like, I don't really care about him. I don't think he's like, but like he could he has some knowledge that he could pass on to people. Go open a gym, right? Fucking enjoy the limelight, like afterwards. Hey, yeah, I was the fucking Ultimate Fighting champion or whatever. Like, he won tough or whatever. But yeah.
Did John, I don't think he actually won.
I think Kendall won. Didn't Kendall win that season?
Yeah.
Or whatever. Well, he was the runner-up. He was the first place. He was the first place loser of the fucking season of the Ultimate Fighter.
John took the words out of my mouth because I was going to say that I was surprised that he still fights. I wasn't a big fan of the guy, but I thought he was okay. But he was very, like you said, he's not really that good. Like, he doesn't really stand out with anything. So he was very middle of the road. So I never really thought much of him. And if he slowed down like that, then...
he used to be a coach at Team Quest. I think he might have just did, like, the youth stuff. But, like, clearly he knows how to, like, do the whole, like, training thing. Dude, just open a gym. Just be done with it.
Okay. So
he's in a time for me.
We've had all of the people from season 1 of The Ultimate Fighter. They've all passed out of competition at this point. Everybody that was in basically season 2 has all retired or moved out of the UFC at least.
It's so crazy that it's been going for that long.
Well, yeah, 2004 or 2000, something like that. So
2005 was
2005. Okay, because I know season 3 was 2006-ish through 2007 or something like that.
We should have just named this podcast "Old Man Shit."
So I just pulled up the bracket for the Ultimate Fighter 3. Now, in that bracket was Caleb Starnes, the running man, Mike Stein, Ross Boynton, Kendall Grove, Solomon Hutchinson, Rory Singer, Ed Herman, and Danny Abadi. The only one that's left from that group that's still in the UFC and still technically fighting, because I don't know if Kendall Grove is still, maybe the Spider is still fighting somewhere, but Ed Herman is the only one still from that middleweight bracket, still in the UFC. And then if you look at the... hold on, let me finish.
Go ahead.
The light heavyweight bracket was Jesse Forbes, Noah Inhofer, Tate Fletcher, Josh Haynes, Mike Nichols, Matt Hamill, Christian Rothermel, and Michael Bisping. And obviously Bisping won that. So we're talking about Bisping retired 3 years ago at this point.
Right.
Ed Herman is still fucking trugging along here.
It's crazy.
I you know what? He wasn't even on my it's time list, but now that we're talking about it, it's time.
Yeah.
I was just going to say about Kendall Grove, he moved over because I remember I did see him on a bare knuckle fight card.
Okay.
And I looked it up. It was last year, September of 2020. He lost to Hector Lombard on a bare knuckle show.
Fine, losing to Hector Lombard, but I don't know, man.
I never liked Kendall Grove anyway.
I just think these guys need to. I guess maybe they don't have enough money. That's the problem.
Dude, I think they chased that high of that final win, and that's gonna that's gonna be a detriment to their health.
I mean, in all fairness, a lot of them, when their time kind of runs out with UFC, go and do the bare knuckle stuff a couple of times because
which I feel is like fucking more dangerous.
Yeah,
I would rather get fucking have the ability to be like submitted or whatever than get punched bare. I have been punched plenty of times bare knuckle. Fuck that. Like I'm not fighting like a train. I'm not fighting a trained killer bare knuckle.
Yeah, like I was surprised Paige Van Zant went and did some bare knuckle stuff, and I was like, really? You're gonna fuck up your face like that?
Because they are paying her.
Oh, they must have thrown her
$2 million.
Yeah,
like,
they threw her large paper, which of course they would, but it's just
the rumor is if she completes all, well, she's not going to. She's going to lose her next fight too. If she had completed all 5 of her fights, she would walk away with like $12 million or something like that.
Bare knuckle?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because she apparently paid off on their first fight because the first fight that they had, they like exponentially like sold their pay-per-views and they raised the price.
I believe it.
They were doing pay-per-views for like $15, and when she jumped on, they bumped it up to $35.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I only watched a couple of them. I don't remember how much it was, but it 35. That's tap out point for me. I don't think I'd spend 35 on a bare knuckle fight. So like I'll pay for them. It's not UFC, so I'll give them money. and God knows I pay for enough pro wrestling. It's like, okay, bare knuckle, sure, I'll throw him a bone, but not for $35. No.
No, I'm with
she lost her first 2 bare knuckle fights.
I looked back, and Kendall Grove hasn't been in the UFC since UFC 130, May 28th of 2011. So it's been 10 years that he's been out of the UFC.
Yeah, he ended up
years.
Where did
he went to Bellator?
Yeah, because I definitely saw him in Bellator.
Yeah, he did like 6 fights or 7 fights or something like that for Bellator.
No,
which
6, 7, 8, 9 fights in Bellator.
Okay.
I was gonna say I definitely saw him in Bellator a bunch of times,
but again, we're not even supposed to be talking about Kendall Grove. We just ended up talking about him. Anyway, Ed Herman, I think it's time.
Yeah.
Looking at the rest of that undercard, though, the prelim card, nothing else even worth talking about.
Was the Tisha Torres Angie Hill fight on that
card? But
no, that was main card.
Oh, okay. I forget.
So,
like I watched most of it after the fact, so I forgot which part of the broadcast it like fell on.
The first fight, Song versus Casey Kenny, had a lot of action, but like again, it was a decision, and I actually think that Casey Kenny won the fight, but bad judging yet again. No surprise.
Yeah, there was a bunch of stuff, but I was reading a whole bunch of fighters were siding with the fact that you don't leave it to the judges. Like, you can't be mad if you lose when you leave it to the judges. And I didn't watch the fight because I was like, I'm not watching the decision, and it seemed like some people thought that he won, some people thought that he didn't. It was close enough that it didn't seem like a robbery.
It wasn't a robbery. I just thought he won. That's all.
Fair enough.
Like I'm not sitting here mad about it. I look at watching the fight. I thought, and then Tisha Torres just out hustled Angela Hill.
Well, that's the problem with, and I kind of I like Angie Hill, and I wish she would get some power behind her shots because she lands a lot, but she just doesn't do any damage. I knew that the Tisha Torres fight was going to not go her way. She was all like, "Yeah, it's bitch fucking season" or whatever the fuck she says, and I was like, "Man, that girl's just gonna be too fast for her. She's just gonna, she's now knows how to wrestle. She's just gonna be too quick. She's gonna be in and out. She's gonna fucking." I knew it was gonna be a decision.
I knew this was.
Yeah, Tisha Torres is hard to control unless you can keep her on the outside and you can hit her with some power shots. And they call her the tiny tornado for a reason. And I knew that Angie was gonna. If Angie didn't figure out a way to put her away, she was gonna get outworked for 3 rounds, and that's exactly the way it played out.
So, before this fight, I made 2 predictions to you, and one of them was that Angela Hill was going to win. And the reason why I felt like Angela Hill was going to win was that I've been watching Tisha Torres for years and years and years, and I felt like she had lost a step. And I thought that just that amount of step loss was going to bring the 2 closer together, and I could not have been more fucking wrong.
Yeah.
And I can admit that. I don't think Angela Hill won even 1 round. There was one judge that gave her a round. I don't think she won.
No, I thought she got swept. I thought she got swept in the rounds.
Yeah, it wasn't even close for me, and it was basically Tisha just blew her doors off with speed and volume. Just she couldn't keep up, and she couldn't keep the pace. And if you can't keep the pace with Tisha Torres, she's going to beat you every time.
Yeah.
I was surprised that Michael Chiesa went out like that.
He was surprised. He even said, he's like, I'm embarrassed. He's like, I can't believe I got caught. He got caught in his own fucking move.
Yeah, his own move. That's the thing. The Darce choke is his thing. And I when I saw the result and then went back and watched the fight, I was like, dude, you didn't even try to get out of that. You just gave up.
Yeah.
He literally froze.
I mean, unless it was tighter than we know. I mean, only he knows how tight it was. But I had picked how do you pronounce that dude's last name?
Okay.
Yeah, I had him winning anyway. I thought it was going to be a real war of attrition. I thought it was going to, probably a 29-28 fight.
Mm-hmm.
And he was going to have to work for that because Chiesa's always in it.
Oh yeah.
I just if someone said oh yeah he's gonna hit I would love to know what the betting line was for a submission in the first round. It had to be plus 1,000. That was crazy. But hey, now there's a new that dude has a new weapon in his arsenal apparently. So
yeah, dude, I was very surprised.
Yeah.
And now I feel like they got a new fucking contender on their hands. And even from what I can tell based on chatter, Usman is already ready to talk to him about a fight once he gets through with Colby if he wins. So that's good for him. It's a good showing. He's done 2 Darces in a row. He Darced Tyron and then he Darced Michael Chiesa. So that's his thing now.
Yeah,
and he also Darced Nico Price a couple years ago.
Yeah, and the thing about the Woodley fight, Woodley showed up in shape, old Woodley, and he still ran through him. So
he went through him.
Yeah, this dude is definitely in the hunt now. I think what was his last loss? Didn't he lose to Stephen Thompson, and that was it?
He's lost 7 fights total, but in the last 13 fights, he's only lost to Leon Edwards and Stephen Thompson, which neither one of them are bad to lose to, in my opinion. Especially when they're both decision losses, so it's not like he got his doors blown off.
But he's also bounced back in such a way since then. So
big win streaks after both losses.
Yeah.
I'll say this: Chiesa looked. I thought he looked good in that fight.
He looked fine.
It was a pretty good back and forth up until the end of it.
Yep.
So I'll give him that.
He'll be back. Chiesa's a gamer, and I hated Michael Chiesa at first.
That's funny because I did too. I really didn't like him at first, and
him on the show was no good.
No,
but once he came off the show and like chilled out a little bit, I'm like, all right, I don't mind this kid so much. He's actually a good fighter.
He is.
And now he's up at 170. He's able to like really show what he can do, and he's not all tired from the cut to 155.
Right.
Going back to the thing we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, the weight thing again.
Now, talking about weight things, Jose Aldo dropping down to bantamweight is just like, he was always drawn out at featherweight. I don't understand this career resurgence, 10 pounds down.
And looks good. Well, they were saying, I don't know if did you listen to any of the commentary? Did you listen?
No, I try not to listen to them idiots.
Fair enough, but fair enough. But I did listen to the commentary, and I think it was DC that was talking about it. So apparently, he knew going down to 10 pounds was going to be an issue for him. He went and saw like a dietitian. He went and saw like nutrition. Like he did everything right that he must not have done at 145. And really, and he like did the right way to drop his actual body weight down a couple pounds so that he could not be sucked in at 135. So whatever he did clearly works because he looks phenomenal, and clearly he has the energy because he looked like the old Aldo.
Yeah, he looked. Yo, I'm gonna tell you straight out. I had him on the it's time list. Like I was ready to pull the fucking card, and he looked absolutely amazing on Saturday.
You had to scratch him off that list.
Yeah, and I mean, sure, it was a 3-round decision, but he was giving Pedro Munoz every goddamn right and left hand he could handle. It wasn't for effect of trying. It just Pedro Munoz
dropped him a few times with leg kicks.
Yep.
Like the old vintage leg kicks were back too.
I can't say anything bad about his performance.
Yeah.
Like, obviously a finish would have been good, but Munoz is hard to finish.
Right.
Yeah. If there was 5 rounds, he probably would have got it.
Oh, for sure, because his leg would have given out.
Yeah.
Main event.
Do we have to even talk about this?
Well, let's lead off with this. Len and I were at...
I said it to Wren, too.
Yeah, we were at a different event that we'll talk about shortly on Saturday night, and Len says to me, well, I think Derrick's going to go down. And he explained to me the whole weigh-in thing because I didn't watch the weigh-ins.
I watched the weigh-ins. I intently watch the weigh-ins because I feel like it gives me a window into who I should be betting on. Because I want to see who's putting on a show and who's actually ready to fight.
Right.
And did you finally watch the weigh-in video? Did either one of you watch it?
I didn't watch it.
Yeah, I saw him. He got like right in his face, and then they almost had like a shoving match.
Right.
And Cyril Gane was kind of like laughing at him, like, all right, dude, like, calm down.
like chill out, bro.
Yeah.
And Derrick Lewis has never been that guy. So in my mind, knowing that
it's funny because everybody knows that, by the way, because even in our conversation, my girlfriend says to me, she's like, he what? She's like, he's not like that. So even she knew, and she's not on this stuff nearly as much as we are, and even she knew that that's not his style.
That's just not his thing. So for me, I was automatically like, okay, between that, like some of the things that I heard him saying in the week leading up, saying that he was feeling the pressure and that it was getting in his mind, I was like, yo, this dude is not coming to fight. Like, he's not ready for this fight. He's not ready for this amount of attention. And the only way he's going to get through this is pure luck at this point. He's going to have to just catch his button. And let's just talk about the fact that Cyril Gane played his cards exactly the way that it needed to be played to win a fight against a dude with a big right hand. Legitimately running away from the power anytime he got in close. Just turn and run.
Right.
Well, I think that if I would be curious if this fight was not in Houston.
It would have been a different situation, I think.
I still think Gane would have probably picked him apart, but I think Lewis would have probably showed a little bit better. He looked weird. Like I was watching the fight, and it was early on. It was early on in the first round. He was standing weird. Now I understand that he's a big boy and he's like, cardio is probably not in his like training, but he was just I didn't know if like his like knee was fucked up or if he was like already
maybe his back is hurting.
Now that you mention it, I noticed that too. There was something off about him.
Yeah, that way.
And now that you mention that, I think the stance was one of the first things that I noticed that was off.
Yeah, and I don't know. Like my thing is like again, like DC was talking about like wherever he fought somewhere, I think in Texas, and he's like, oh, I live like 100 miles away, and he's like, I felt the pressure because everyone wants tickets and they this, that, and the other thing. He's like, you're getting hounded by everyone and he's like, this is Derrick's like hometown. Like he lives like 20 minutes down the road.
Right.
He's like, and all the media shit that he had to do because he had to like pump up his hometown and all that stuff, like that clearly fucked with his head. Like if this shit was in Vegas, like I wonder how that would have, like I wonder if he would have had. I think he would have lost. I think Cyril Gane has the style to beat him, 9 out of 10 times. But I wonder if he would have just looked better, like it would have had a better showing.
I don't know. I feel like it was basically a repeat of the fight that he had with Ngannou, except the fact that Gane actually engaged and put the power on him. But Derrick's performance was exactly the same. The spotlight was just too bright for him.
Yeah.
Like, he's good when even if he's headlining a card, but it doesn't matter. Like, if there's I don't care about this fight, I'm just here to make my money, fine. But, like, put it in his mind that he could be the champ, can't do it.
Well, he also fucking shit the bed when he fought DC. He looked awful.
He looked awful. Absolutely awful.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I mean, that being said, I still love Derrick Lewis. Yeah. Like, if he fights, I'm still going to tune in.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
That's not the concern. It's just, like, looking at his specific performance in this fight, it was disappointing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to have to adjust his game and get back in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But same thing. I'm still a fan. Just a disappointment, but listen, that's how the fight game goes.
So there was one match that we didn't get to watch on this that was supposed to be on this. Nunes was supposed to fight versus Juliana Pena, but she had to pull out because she tested positive for COVID-19.
Yeah, and they're saying that this card might even be pushed back that fight might be pushed back as far as December.
Right.
So, I mean, Juliana Pena had a small point. She did like a press conference about it, and she was saying that if this fight isn't going to happen in December, it's time to like move on. And I thought that she defended that belt.
She hasn't.
It's been since it's almost it'll be 2 years by that point since she's defended that belt.
Really?
I thought she bounced back. I thought every fight she had was.
It was back and forth. It wasn't
back and forth, and it wasn't as much as I had thought. And
December 14th was 2019 was the last time she defended that belt.
So she said, but Juliana Pena said, and now take this with a grain of salt, that apparently someone from, I guess ATT like leaked that she was like barely training, like that Nunes was barely training. It's all about like and even Juliana Pena said, she's like, I get it, she's a new mom, like. The attention's to the kid. Like all she wants to do is hang out with her kid. And she's like, I 100% get that. She's like, I was a mom, I'm a mom too. Like I understand. I hope that that's not the case. Like I hope that but I also can see it. Like Nunes just runs through everybody. That it's hard to get up for a fight. Especially when you have a kid. So it'll be interesting. Right. But with Pena talking as much shit as she has, like she should have a reason to fucking fight someone. Like.
Well, let's just be serious here. Nunes hasn't fucking lost since Kat Zingano back in UFC 178, September 2014.
7 years.
She ain't tasted a loss. And ain't even been close.
She hasn't even lost like many rounds.
Right. It ain't even been close.
Yeah.
And she's had 12 fights since then.
Yeah.
So it's not like she fought like twice in 7 years. She's been
and
steady.
she absolutely murdered the murderer Chris Cyborg in the middle of all that.
And murder.
Yeah, and that was what, 51 seconds?
Yeah, she murdered Rousey. She murdered Holly Holm. She murdered Chris Cyborg. She's murdered like some of the best. She went to a decision split with Valentina, which I think that Valentina is the only woman on the planet that could potentially beat her.
She smoked Ronda in 48 seconds.
Yep.
Smoked Cyborg in 51 seconds.
Yeah.
And they were like back-to-back fights, right? So she picked off.
No, there were a couple fights in between.
I thought they were back-to-back.
There were two other fights in between. They were like 2 years
and Pennington.
2 years almost to the day. Off by 1 day. Rousey was December 30th, 2016, and then Cyborg was December 29th, 2018.
Oh, shit.
So exactly 2 years apart.
And I mean, she waded into the fire with Chris Cyborg. She was just like, "We doing this? We doing it? We're doing it. Let's go."
Yeah.
We're doing it all right. 51 seconds.
Lights out. I remember why, like, so you know how when old people talk about, I was there when I was watching that fight and this is what happened. I know what happened when I was watching that fight. I literally almost threw my laptop across the room because I was so excited. Now I don't really hate Chris Cyborg, but it was just the fashion in which that happened.
And John, you may be thinking because Miesha Tate and Ronda Rousey were back to back.
Oh,
so that might be what you were thinking of.
Maybe, yeah.
July 2016, she beat Miesha Tate in 3 minutes 16 seconds, and then her next fight was Rousey in December of that year.
I mean, look at that. She beat McMahon, who is an Olympic medalist.
Yeah.
She beat Shevchenko, beat Tate, Rousey.
And by the way,
Shevchenko
before
again.
McMahon, she beat Shayna Baszler too.
That ain't nothing, bro. That ain't nothing.
Well, it's a name.
It's a name, but that's it.
I mean, it's a name in pro wrestling now, but still.
You know what? I bet her mind wasn't in it when she fought Kat Zingano, because there's no way that she doesn't have the skills to beat Kat.
I would agree with that. If you look at it,
if you run that fight right now, like obviously
she would murder Kat.
Yeah, I think she would.
Yeah.
Like, and I like Kat.
I like Kat.
There's nothing that says to me that Kat Zingano in 2021 beats Amanda Nunes in 2021.
No.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, I mean, just that run. But if you look at the whole timeline, yeah, I think with the Kat fight, she was just off because if you look at it in the context of all these other fights, it's like, wow, that's just a weird one. Because that's her only loss in the UFC.
Yep.
But listen, talk shit about Shayna Baszler, but like she plowed through Shayna Baszler in under 2 minutes, which was something.
Look,
and
Shayna Baszler was
plowing through
when she was
else.
when MMA for women wasn't as developed as it was even when she lost to Amanda. Shayna has been doing this, or was doing this, for a long time.
Oh yeah,
and I respect her.
Yeah, absolute pioneer in that percent.
But if we're talking about actual skills, the Queen of Spades doesn't really have a deep skill set.
Yeah,
that's
I don't disagree. I throw her up there as a name because it's a known name. Do I think she's a great fighter? No, I think
she's tough, and that's what she.
I think she was already past her prime when they put her on The Ultimate Fighter.
Absolutely. I mean, she only fought twice in the UFC. She fought Betch Correa and lost, and then she lost to Amanda Nunes, and she fought one more time after that outside in Tokyo, and then that was it.
Right.
So, yeah,
and
it was just
she
had already amassed, 15 wins before she even got to the UFC.
Right.
And
that was back when Dana was saying, "Nah, we're not going to have women."
Right. the mileage that she had on her already was just too
Oh,
much.
for sure.
She'd been fighting since 2003.
Yeah.
But she's much better off in doing wrestling. She's perfectly fine there.
Yeah, she seems to be doing okay, even though she does that shit that I won't watch.
You're right.
But that's another story.
So, that's my wrap up on this past UFC. What is there, like maybe 2 its times, like official ones?
Oh, yeah. What do we say? Ed Herman
and Carolina.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I agree with those.
So on Saturday, I decided instead of coming out to that show for Colin Trabico, I decided that I was going to go to see a wrestling event with Gary in South Jersey.
I'm bringing him to the dark side.
I don't know.
I saw the the videos or photos of you guys hanging out, and Len, you kind of cracked a smile. It looks like you kind of had a little bit of fun.
Caught me off guard.
I mean, it's not very often that the two of us are together in the same place, so it had to be documented. Because I will say at first he was like, I'm like, come on. When are we in the same spot at the same time?
Okay, so
especially with Steve Huey.
So what organization was it?
This was VXS Wrestling, and I had gone to one of their shows earlier last month in North Jersey, and they were running South Jersey. So I said, let's go. And then I said, hey, Len, it's not far from you.
Thinking it wasn't really that far, but it technically was like 45 miles, which is...
Was it really that much?
Yeah, it's 45 miles door to door.
Oh.
I mean, it's not like I drove across the earth. It wasn't that big a deal, but it wasn't like it was like in my backyard. Like if you said, yo, it's at the spot in Trenton where they have like concerts and whatever at that there's like a small arena in Trenton, I'd be like, yeah, well, that's like literally around the corner. But Camden, outside of Camden, it's like driving to Philadelphia.
Right.
But worse. So you asked me before we even lit this up, and I deferred my judgment on what it was, and I actually told Marty, because he actually hit me up, and he's like, hey, how was that wrestling thing? And I was like, look, I had fun. I can't say I didn't have fun, because I did have fun, but I also realized that I don't think it's necessarily something that's for me at this point in my life. Like, okay. I had a hard time because I'm so divorced from wrestling that I don't know any storylines and I don't know any of the people short of Too Cold Scorpio, which I've known him for 30 plus years at this point, and I knew Steve Huey. So everyone else, I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? I felt like Conor McGregor in there. Like, who the fuck is this guy? And I'm just like watching it, and it's fine. Like, it's violent, and they're throwing each other around. It's perfectly entertaining. I totally get it, but I'm just not sucked into it. So I would have to like immerse myself in all the knowledge of all the indies and like start reading wrestling magazines or online wrestling magazines to really get a feel for the people, so that I knew who I was even watching, to know what I was watching for. So for me, it was just like a spectator sport of a spectator sport. I was watching everybody else watch the fights. Like the guys you knew that were sitting behind me, they were all in. Like they were.
Oh yeah, those guys are crazy. They were crazy into it.
And I'm like watching it, and I'm like, okay, well, I mean, they're loving this, so it must be good. I didn't think it was bad, but I just didn't have any context.
New to you.
It just no context.
Well, here's a funny way to compare this. Once upon a time, there was no internet.
Mm-hmm.
So you would go to an independent wrestling show, and I'll give you a perfect example. The grade school that I went to that's right near where I live, when I was a kid, they did a wrestling show once. Not a single name you would recognize on the show. And this was like early 80s. It was just whatever independent promotion was around back then. And you didn't know any of the names at all. But you go to the show and you have a good time. Now, of course, everybody knows all the names. Like if these guys work 3 indie shows, there's a fucking entry for them on fucking whatever. Well, not Wikipedia, but there's something called Cage Match that keeps track of like all the pro wrestling stuff. So a lot of times, you know, guy wrestles a couple of matches, suddenly he's got an entry on Cage Match.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's a little different now because it's so easy to keep track of it. But that your perspective is kind of like back in the old days where you go to a wrestling show, you don't know who these people are that are on the show. And I've gone to shows like that too, even more recently. And you can look up, and I went to an indie show in a gym in the Bronx a couple of years ago, and there were maybe 3 or 4 names that I knew, and all the rest I didn't know. But it's like, hey, $10, it's a wrestling show, we'll have a good time. Worst that happens is $10 and it sucks, but whatever.
Well, that's the way the ECW was back in the day. Like when I first went to ECW, I was like young as shit, and they were like barely on TV. I didn't know like occasionally like someone would from the big leagues would like come down. You see like Rey Mysterio or something like that, Dean Malenko like doing something. But like when I first went there, I had Rob Van Dam, Sabu. Who the fuck were these guys?
Right.
It's like one of those things like. So I understand the going to Indy and not knowing anything, but then you have to like immerse yourself. Now ECW was like a fucking cult, so
well, yeah.
So you quickly immerse yourself into that, but
that's the funny thing because it obviously this was nowhere near ECW, but you've got your diehard fans like the guys that were sitting behind us, who were just fucking loud as fuck about everything. And we're cursing dudes out and all that shit.
I feel like the indie shows are for those people. They're for the diehards. Sure. They're for diehards. Mostly. Well,
it's a little different screaming from Section 300.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I always feel like, and even back in the ECW, my only comparison is ECW days. Like being at the arena didn't hold that many people. So when you yelled bullshit at like the Dudley Boys, they heard you and they would yell back at you.
Oh yeah,
there was like that interaction. You don't get that. Maybe a couple people in the front row get that interaction in like a WWF event, but there's fucking 16,000 people in the stands at that. So like,
right. Well, Len, this is what we were talking about last week. Just the idea of like, yeah, arena shows are cool, just like concerts. Arena shows are cool, but it's a whole different vibe when you're in that little warehouse or whatever.
Right.
And sitting because. We ended up sitting front row, which just made it even more interesting because we got the hookup. And it was just, you know, it's a crazy vibe in a tiny place, and you're sitting front row, and like these dudes fall out of the ring, and they're in front of you,
like literally on
like
in your
literally
lap.
like
hey, what's up, guy?
Yeah. So it's a whole different vibe compared to like an arena show.
Or when Steve Huey's getting thrown through the fucking chairs and we got to get out of the way because he's coming through our chairs.
Yeah, when he's practically aiming for us, he's like, oh. Because that was the first thing when we ended up front row. I'm like, oh, Steve's going to fuck with us. God damn it. And he did a little bit, but it was fun. But then he brought us donuts, and that made it all okay.
Federal donuts.
Yeah.
And those are the best donuts.
Oh my God, I love Federal Donuts.
That lady. There was a lady in the crowd who was clearly just having the time of her life. And she was going in on everybody here and there, but then Steve Huey went in on her hard from the edge of the ring.
Well, let's explain. Steve wrestles heel, right? As Dr. Q. Mm-hmm. And he's got a mask on, so you wouldn't know that it's him. So he's cursing this woman. Well, no, she wasn't there. She stepped out.
Well, she was walking away.
Yeah, she was walking away, and her husband was still there. And he's like, "Your wife's a fat bitch." And we're just howling, laughing, because this is all like 5 feet away from us. And
I mean, it's all part of the show. Like if Steve had actually done this in public, in a regular setting, I'd be like, yo, Steve, what the fuck is wrong with you? But when you're in character, it's a different thing.
Well, because the show that I mentioned that I went to in North Jersey last month, he did the same kind of shit with like a little kid. And then I'm talking to him later on. He's like, "Did you see when I healed that little kid?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm all for it." I mean, because I love, like, Wren, you mentioned the Dudley Boys. Like, the Dudley Boys used to, like, people nowadays do not understand what used to go on with the Dudley Boys in ECW. Like, I saw those guys.
I thought they were literally going to fight fans, like, multiple times.
Oh, I've seen them practically fight fans. Because those dudes used to incite near riots.
Yeah, it was awesome.
In the Elks Lodge, and I know they did the same thing down in Philly at the ECW arena. Every
time they wrestled.
Dude, I watched a guy jump down from the balcony at the Elks Lodge trying to get at those dudes. Like, because they're like, yo, your girlfriend's a fucking fat bitch. And, like, place is going insane. One of the crazy stories, I may have told this on the podcast before, right after Rick Rude died, they were friends with Rick Rude. And they did the 10 bell salute at the beginning, and the Dudleys came out and were like, listen, we got to do things a little different tonight, and we got to tell you that Rick Rude was our brother, and we loved him, and we miss him, and it was totally out of character for the Dudley Boys. And then they're like, we want to thank you guys for taking the moment of silence at the beginning and being respectful, except for this one stupid bitch. And there was this one woman, and she was a regular at the ECW shows, because that's the thing with indie wrestling. Like, and even now, like the show that we went to on Saturday, most of these people are regulars. Like, you'll see them at every show. They were at the other show. Yeah, a lot of times they'll be in the same seats. So at the Elks Lodge, this woman was a regular, and everybody hated her because she would trot her kid out, who was like 13, and it was one of those attention things. Like, her kid was always dressed up as the wrestler to get people's attention. So her kid happened to be dressed up as a Dudley Boy that night, and when they did the moment of silence, she was talking to her kid. So people were pissed off because people already hated them anyway. So he's like, except for this one disrespectful bitch, and just singles her out right there. Like, you might as well have shown a spotlight on her. And the whole place started booing them, booing her. And Bubba Ray Dudley is like, you and that fucking piece of shit, talking about the kid, that piece of shit, you should have run down your mother's leg. And the whole place is just like, and then, like, after the initial shock, the whole place is like, yeah, fuck this bitch. And everybody was just screaming and fucking booing her and this and that. And they just run her down for a couple of minutes. And then Paul Heyman comes out, and he reaches into his pocket and pulls out money. And he's like, here, this is double your money back. I want you to get the fuck out of here, and I don't ever want to see you at one of my shows again. And the roof blew off the place.
And that's why people loved ECW. That's
exactly.
That's why ECW was like a cult. Because
exactly, because you would never see shit like that anywhere else. But ECW did that, and everybody loved it. Everybody went to ECW because of shit like that.
Yeah.
So so talking about Steve and doing that shit, like, that's tradition, and I love that heel shit, so I was all about it. So anyway, to finish the story, he did that shit, and then later on he comes out during intermission, and I was over talking to one of the wrestlers, and I came back, and he's there with Federal Donuts and the woman who he had called a fat bitch earlier. What happened? She came up to him, because I wasn't there for this, Len. She came up.
She was marveling that he had Federal Donuts because they're not local to here and they're a delicacy. And how much she loves Federal Donuts.
I can't believe you have Federal Donuts.
I mean, she's talking to him as if he hasn't just totally denigrated her because she had no idea that he was the same human being.
Yeah,
and her husband had no idea that he was the same person. Like, just it's like the man in the mask. Took the mask off. No idea who he is.
Oh, my God. It's so fucking funny.
I would have got away with it. It wasn't for those meddling kids.
Yeah.
And Steve had said his reaction at first, he was like, really? And she's like, oh, I don't want a donut. I just want to give you a fist bump. Oh, I love indie wrestling. God damn it. This is why. So anyway, as you were saying, you didn't know a lot of the names.
It's not even that I didn't know a lot of the names. Like, I don't care that I didn't know the names, but like if there were fights on the card that were tied to previous fights and there was like narrative that's supposed to be running through this, I don't have any of the context of the narrative.
Which there's really not, because with indie wrestling, it's limited. It's not like you got TV and stuff. So if anything, you'll have like what you saw at the end of the night, where
they were talking about doing a match.
Well, you had Willie Mack, who had just fought Cold Scorpio, and then Brian Cage came out, and they kind of just looked at each other, and that was the tease for like the next show.
Okay.
And you might have like one or two other things like that, where, like I think that happened also with Gabriel Sky, who
right.
Steve fought.
Right.
And they had, because that was actually an angle that had run in the early part of the show before you got there.
Okay.
That they had a match in what was the pre-show, and that he came out to help, and then later on they came to help him, and then it turned into a whole other storyline. But they, with indie wrestling, you got to do a quick little storyline because you don't have TV, you don't have anything else. So a lot of times, if you're lucky, it's just like they'll come out at the end of a different match and like tease a fight for the next show. That's really it. There's not these major storylines like you would see on TV.
Okay. Well, see, that's something I don't know because I've never really been involved with it.
Right.
So back to the Steve Huey match. John Wren.
Yeah.
I know Steve for a couple years now, maybe 5-6 years. I've been seeing him around, and I knew he was kind of like into wrestling, but I didn't realize that like he was doing this type of match. Mm-hmm. My man risked life and limb throughout this fucking match, and I have a newfound respect for his disrespect for his body.
Yo, that first chair throw,
dude. The chair throws, dude. Boom.
Oh
dude,
my god!
He got hit. The dude that when he was wrestling threw a chair at his head, and it didn't hit him on the flat part. It hit him on the edge of the chair.
Oh, like the leg of the chair.
The leg of the chair hit
him right in the head, and it made such a sound.
Yeah, dude.
And we just were like, "Ooh,
that's gonna
sting."
My man has a headache now.
Dude, he has an everything ache right now. They set up a chair in the corner with the feet sticking out, and he got thrown into the chair, so it kind of collapsed, and it just crunched his whole body as he goes in. Like, it was just the most disgusting thing I ever saw. I was like, I'd rather watch fucking Anderson Silva break his leg again and then watch that.
You know what the worst part of that was? When we're talking to him later, and he's like, "Yeah, that was my idea." You're fucking crazy.
Yeah, ridiculous.
You're fucking nuts. And we are going to have him on the podcast.
We are definitely going to have him on.
We talked about that, and he's in.
So apparently Tom Alderson was at the show.
Oh, yeah, I think he was, because I saw him the next morning because he did his first short-distance triathlon. And he was saying something about hanging out with Steve, so I think he was there.
Yeah, because he said to Steve, "Is that Len over there?" Like, so Tom, if you're listening to this, you could have just walked over and been like, "Yo, what's up?" Because I'm not weird, and I would have talked to you.
Well, you're weird.
And I'm not his security.
Tara would have been more security than you. Oh man, but going back to the event, the jumping off of the the bathroom, basically the bathroom was like a building inside the building, and Steve and his opponent had an angle where they climbed up there and threw themselves into the crowd. Like, I gotta give it to everybody that wrestled on that card. Yo, shout out to Masha. She was great.
Oh yeah, Masha Slamovich.
I enjoyed that fight.
That was a really good match.
More than any of the other fights.
Yeah.
Like, from an actual wrestling, like the core of what I liked about watching wrestling in the 80s and early 90s, she did a great job of bringing that to the table, and so did her opponent.
And if you want to talk, like, it's not really so much of an angle, but a thing that she's been doing, because she did it at the last show also, is they have her wrestling dudes. Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, other promotions have done that over time, but the last guy that she fought was a guy named Danny Garcia, who was just on AEW Dynamite this past week.
Okay.
So, you know, she's not fighting like rookies. She's fighting like top level dudes that are going on TV. And this other dude that she fought, Anthony Green, he was just cut loose from WWE a month ago or so. He was an indie guy, had done indies for a long time, and then ended up signed by the E, wrestled for them for a while, and then they cut him loose. So he's another high-level talent. And she's going in there and working 5-star matches with these dudes, which is fantastic.
Yeah, she did a great job.
Yeah.
TBA.
Yeah,
TBH, sorry. My brain is shot.
Well, it's not like he took a chair to the head or anything.
How do you know what I did?
I don't know.
You weren't there the whole time. You were hiding in the bathroom, scared.
Me? Yeah, okay.
I wrestled the whole match while you were gone.
Taking chairs to the head and everything.
Eating a donut does not count as wrestling a match.
Whoa. I don't need you judging me today.
Speak for yourself.
I took 5 laps for that donut.
I wrestled that donut as hard as I fucking could.
And you know what? Too Cold Scorpio for, what is he? 58, 60? I don't know. He's old.
He's definitely in his 50s. Late 50s.
He did a great match.
Is my man still flipping off the top rope?
A little bit. He's slowed down though.
He is 55 years old.
Okay. So he's 10 years older than me, and
he still gets the flips in.
Yep.
He got a few.
Good for him. That's awesome.
And nobody got shanked.
I did enjoy him attempting to wrestle in a mask, not like a regular, like, not like a luchador mask, but like an actual, like,
oh yeah, well,
like a gator, because he was trying to cover himself for COVID. But
yeah,
that's
like, been his thing. He's been wrestling all of his matches like that, because I've seen him do a bunch of stuff on TV and stuff, and that's been his thing for a while.
It was just too hot in there for him. He had to. He gave up on him.
Yeah, because that's the other thing is it's cool that you got to go to a show like this, because this is a perfect example of, like, this is real indie wrestling, because it's like, it's a warehouse, no AC, tiny place, just madness. Like, this is like real indie wrestling.
Yeah. So Gary and I were having this conversation, Wren, that I did not recognize that wrestlers that aren't in the WWE are typically not technically bigger than me. They're usually significantly shorter than I am. And I am, in my mind, always thought that these wrestlers were bigger than life because I'm imagining, Ultimate Warrior. I'm imagining Macho Man. I'm imagining, even Hulk Hogan. Fuck Hulk Hogan. But he's like 6'5" and 300 and some pounds. Like a massive human being. And Two Cold Scorpios, like barely 5'10" in real life. He's billed at 5'11", but he's not even that. And like most of these wrestlers are not even half the size of me. And I'm like, shit, I didn't even realize that these guys were so little.
Well, you should see someone like, well, I mean, that he's short, but you should see like Rey Mysterio in real life. Like that's a fucking.
Oh
like,
yeah.
He's ripped now, like he put on mass, but he's a fucking tiny human being.
Right.
Like I didn't realize, like I was like always like, oh yeah, he's like probably as tall as I am if like, Hulk Hogan's like 6'4" or whatever. And then I like saw him at a fan event when I was like younger and I was like, oh shit, no, he's fucking tiny.
Yeah.
Like, he's a small dude. But I think Gary, you could attest to this better than I could. Like I feel like that the behemoths, like the fucking gods that they were like in the 80s when McMahon was pumping them all full of steroids, like that era is over. Like aren't like they more like your typical athlete now, not like these like giant bodybuilders?
Well, I was going to say that to a point. A lot of it is just that the industry has changed. That you have a lot of guys that are just smaller. Because as the industry has changed, you get guys that are more athletic. You look at guys like the Young Bucks. You look at a lot of the guys that are on TV now, and you don't have as many of those big guys. That was always a Vince McMahon thing more than anything, that he always would have to sign these fucking monsters. And because of that, for a long time, that's what dominated the wrestling industry. But over time, as you see, because we talked about this a little, I think, at the show, the Mexican style, the Japanese style, or we even talked about it on the podcast recently also. A lot of it is smaller guys because a lot of it is more athletic. You see guys doing more aerial stuff. Like Scorpio's an example because he was, we talked about this too, he was one of the first, he was the first African-American really to be doing a lot of that style because as they introduced him at the show, he's a graduate of the New Japan Pro Wrestling Dojo. So he did a lot of training over there. So he can wrestle that style, and he's one of the people that kind of helped to innovate that style more here in the States. So you get those smaller guys, and then you have the bigger guys. But even on the indies, because we talked about this as the show, Brian Cage from AEW was on the show on Saturday. And we see him, and he looks like a fucking monster. But then the reality is Brian Cage is a big dude, but by WWE standards, he's not. If you put him up against some of the guys in the E, he's not nearly as big as some of those dudes. And that's just because they get those monster dudes, guys like Braun Strowman and guys like that they'll get legitimate 6'5" guys. And you don't see as many of those in the indies. You will get some, but a lot of it also is that the indie style, because of the way these places are, you don't get a lot of the monsters. You get the flippy guys. So that's just the way the business is. Because even if you get some of these monsters, sometimes they don't work well with the smaller guys, depending on how they're trained. The thing with Brian Cage is that he used to be smaller. If you look online, you find pictures of him when he first broke into the business. He was a smaller dude,
yeah,
and he just bulked up. And when I went to the show in North Jersey last month, Brian Cage fought a dude named Shane Mercer, who's a regular for GCW. And he is a very built, muscular dude. but he doesn't have the height. If he had the height, I guarantee you he would have been signed already by one of the big TV companies. But it's crazy to see a dude like that because he's got the muscle, and that dude was picking up Brian Cage and fucking slamming him. And you see how big Brian Cage is.
Yeah, but a lot of that is them working with each other to get that move over too.
Yeah, but one of the things that Shane Mercer does is that he just does, as part of his moveset, he does a lot of shit that's like deadlifts where there is no help. And you could see
that he's strong enough to do it.
He does it a lot, and it's kind of a showcase of his strength, and that's where you see that show through a lot more. So that's part of it too. But yeah, overall the size thing is a change in the industry over the past 20 years or so. Because even ECW, a lot of the ECW guys weren't big dudes.
Weren't huge, right?
And
it's just something I had in my mind, you know?
Well, that comes from, again, ECW brought in, like, everybody thinks of ECW as like, okay, we're going to light this table on fire and New Jack's going to jump off the balcony. But ECW was great because they were a mix. Because in ECW, yeah, you had your crazy New Jack match where he's fucking stabbing somebody. But then you also had Rey Mysterio versus Psychosis, or like Eddie Guerrero or Chris Benoit, your technical type of stuff. And you had, those guys are an example of like Japanese style or Mexican style, which was more athletic, more flips and stuff like that. And then you would also have other matches that were more closer. I don't want to say, for lack of a better term, I'll say standard type of wrestling matches where you'd have a guy like Shane Douglas who was
Jerry Lynn.
Jerry Lynn was more athletic.
Yeah.
But you'd have like Jerry Lynn versus Rob Van Dam, which was a 5-star match, and that was kind of a hybrid because it wasn't really Japanese or Mexican style, but it still had a lot of the aerial stuff. Or you'd have a guy like Shane Douglas where he was more of a grounded, traditional type of wrestler, more like you would see in the E or something.
Right.
But you had all of that mixed together on one show. And that was one of the things that really changed a lot as far as the wrestling business, because it used to just be, you would have your WWE style or your WCW style, and those international styles started to get mixed in more, and it turned into a new kind of hybrid style. And that's the lineage of that can continue. You can look at it, and it continues down into what is current indie wrestling. That's how they do things now. A lot of the guys that are in indie wrestling now, well, now it's getting to a different age even, where those guys, when they were like kids in single digits, they were watching ECW for the first time. Or
so wild.
Even later, some of those guys are even younger now, where their first wrestler, their first favorite wrestler was John Cena, which is crazy.
That's totally crazy.
Because a lot of those guys that were on that show that we went to, a good portion of that, they're in their mid to late 20s or even early 20s. Like the one dude in the early match, Marcus Mathers, I think he just graduated high school not that long ago.
Oh yeah, yeah, he looked young enough to be like he was baby faced.
Because depending on where you are, some of these states, and especially outside of the United States, because you get like Rey Mysterio started training when he was like 12.
It's wild.
Because like the whole family was in the business.
Mm-hmm.
And same for the Guerreros and a lot of the other families from Mexico, and some of them in Japan started training early too, but definitely in Mexico, because in Mexico a lot of it was a family business. Like, look at the Guerreros.
Yep.
So some of these guys started training when they were crazy young.
All the hearts, all the hearts.
Yeah, the hearts too. It's like they're 21 years old. So you're like, oh, it's a rookie. Yeah, he's 21, but he's been wrestling for 10 years. What? And that's how it is. So that's all part of it too. But again, that smaller size really comes from a change in the industry over time that started. I shouldn't say started, but it was really brought to prominence, especially in the United States, with ECW. Because you might have had a Japanese guy pop up once or twice on WCW here and there, like when we saw the Great Muta or something. But as far as wrestling that style of match and letting those guys go a long time, because TV matches were always short. ECW was also when they would let it fly with, like, these guys are doing like a 30-minute match.
Huey hit him with the Muta mist.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. I was in on that.
Yeah. That was a classic.
But yeah, so here, what I'll say is, number one, if Steve Huey is fighting, well, is working another match, or Masha is working another match, I would go again. Because I enjoyed both of their performances enough. And plus, I like Steve anyway, regardless. But if you got something coming up, I'd go again if they were doing it. Or if somebody big that I knew was on it. You know what I mean? So feel free to invite me if you know those things are going on.
I'll let you know. I know, and I will go on record and state, listen, I'm putting these guys over. We're putting these guys over as putting on a good show. It's not like we got any kind of deal with them.
No.
Turns out I have a connection with one of the guys that runs the place. So, we're cool with them. But if the show was shit, I'd tell you the show was shit, or I just wouldn't talk about it.
Right.
So they are putting on good shows. And the other thing too is these independent talents, they're independent. So a lot of these guys aren't signed anywhere, so you could see them on this show. Like when I was talking to Matt Cross, he had been in Maine the night before. That dude travels all over the place all the time, working all different shows. This is what they do. It's very similar to being in a touring band. But instead of being in a van with a bunch of guys, you're by yourself. Or if you're lucky, you travel with a couple of dudes. A lot of those guys will go every night. They're on the road. So it's very comparable to the life of like touring musicians, especially when sometimes they'll go and fly to different places. I met a guy one time who used to be in Impact, and he was working a show that I was working security on, and he said to me, like, this was like day 16 of him being on the road straight.
That's too many days.
And he was just flying from place to place because, like, Impact would do their TV taping, and then he was just doing indie show, and like I was in a car. We were driving him to LaGuardia so he could catch a flight to go on to the next one.
Crazy.
And that's how he made his money. That's how all these dudes make their money. So it really is comparable to that touring band lifestyle. So I know we will not be attending their next show because, as they announced that night, it's going to be in LA.
Yeah, definitely not going to LA.
And yeah, it would be nice, but no, that's not happening.
Yep.
So we'll have to wait and see when their next show is coming. But I'm always on the lookout. There's other indie companies. There's other indie shows. And one of these things that's come up after quarantine and everything is I want to get out more. I want to get out to more independent wrestling shows because I love it. Try to get out to more hardcore shows too when I can. And I will definitely let you know when more stuff comes up and see what's what. But
All right, perfect.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
No, I had a good time.
Because as you had mentioned, the last time you went to a wrestling show, you mentioned this on the last podcast. The last time you went to a wrestling show was 1999. Was that right?
Great American Bash '99.
Yeah. So
long, long ago.
Yeah.
When young Wren was a little whippersnapper.
I was 17 and you were 41.
Yeah, and I was still. Well, you're still the same exact height, so whatever.
Don't start picking old dude fights because you will lose. Don't push it.
We'll just run around for a little bit. You guys get tired out.
You got to stop running at some point.
That's when the heater comes out. Hey, Wren, when was the last wrestling show you went to?
I took my nephew to a WWF event probably 5 years ago, I guess it was. Didn't know anything except for it was the night that Ronda Rousey came out. Her first thing. It was in when she first made her announcement that she was in the WWF.
Okay.
It was fine. It was whatever. But the last time that I went when I was into it, 2004 maybe.
And what was that? Ring of Honor?
No, it was a WWF event. That was the last one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was just some house show. I dragged Diana to it, and
she's never forgiven you yet.
Pretty much, yeah. One of the last events that I went to that I vividly remember was when Brock Lesnar was still on the undercard. He was on the non-televised thing. He wrestled Perry Saturn in one of the shittiest matches I've ever seen in my life. And
I cannot imagine how that's possible.
Yeah, and then at the very end, the Undertaker was wrestling someone, and a bunch of people ran out to help his opponent, and Brock was one of the guys that helped out, and he ran in, and the Undertaker just threw him out of the ring like he was a rag doll, and I was
yep.
But then I was like, man, that guy's really big. I bet you he's going to be huge. And 3 months later, he was he was Brock Lesnar.
Yeah,
he was the man.
Yeah.
That's the funny thing about some of these indie shows. I've talked about this before. When you go to these indie shows, sometimes if you're paying close enough attention, some of these guys are the guys that you're going to see on TV in a couple of years. When I used to go to Ring of Honor shows, let me think. Who have I seen live that turned into? I've seen Seth Rollins a bunch of times on Ring of Honor shows. Homicide, who worked the show we went to on Saturday, he's worked for just about every company except for AEW and WWE, and I've seen him on shows since early 2000s, the beginning of Ring of Honor. Lots of other guys that are on TV, Cesaro in WWE, Brody Lee, who was in AEW, who passed last year. A lot of these guys I've seen work these small shows, and they work their way up over time. So some of these guys on the show will eventually pop up on TV. So it's kind of cool to see that also. AJ Styles, perfect example. Met AJ Styles. We did a bus trip and down to Philly to see Ring of Honor, and AJ Styles came on the bus, and we were talking to him a little bit, and that was probably 2002 or 2003, and now 18 years later he's on TV every week.
Hey,
and he's been in just about every company. So a lot of these guys work hard and hustle to do these small shows, and eventually they end up doing bigger things, and then sometimes when they're done doing the bigger things, you end up coming back, just like Scorpio.
Right.
So it's interesting to see both sides of that. Guys just getting their start, and then guys who are kind of, I don't want to say winding down, but kind of continuing their path and still enjoying that fan interaction later on in their career.
Good for them.
So That's one of those things that I love. So I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Thanks for inviting me, dude. Seriously, had a good time.
Cool.
Next time we'll have to get Wren to come.
Yeah, let's go to GCW. I want to see Nick Gage murder someone.
That's happening. That's gonna happen.
I was walking into a restaurant yesterday in Lambertville, New Jersey, which is right outside of New Hope, and the dude walking in front of me had an MDK shirt on.
Nice.
And I was just like, yo, guy. I was like, sweet shirt. I just had to give it to him because I know that like 99% of the people don't even know what the shirt is about.
Did you like that picture I sent you?
Yeah, dude.
Oh man. Yeah, John. I sent a picture to I sent a picture to Len on Instagram. It's Gage sitting, and he's got a big smile on his face, and it says, "Hi kids, do you like violence?" So funny.
Well, I would definitely. I mean, I know that the crowd at that would be out of fucking control, so I would definitely go to that.
Yeah, I'm waiting. They're gonna put soon. GCW is doing 2 nights in Queens, in New York City, in September, right after AEW is doing their big tennis stadium show.
Okay.
And I'm waiting for those to go on sale, and I'm definitely going to go to that. But they do a lot of stuff in Atlantic City,
which I would also go to because that's very easy for me.
Yeah, I've been hoping to get down there and see something.
Well, I do know that Gage is doing an event in AC at the end of September, but I will be in Chattanooga torturing myself again with my second Ironman of the year. So I'll feel like Nick Gage at the end of. We'll both feel the same way. We'll both be all fucked up.
Tough. That's a tough call, man. Ironman.
All right,
Pizza cutters.
Yeah.
To wrap this show up,
Yeah.
John Wren.
Yeah.
Please, just give us a 10-minute rundown on your most recent Ironman, because for some of our listeners, you might not even know that John Wren runs all kinds of races, but recently he competed in an Ironman, I think Lake Placid? Something like that?
Yeah, it was in Lake Placid.
So why don't you just tell us about it a little bit?
So what an Ironman is, it's funny because in the beginning of the race, I was talking to a couple people, and they were saying, like, oh, I'm doing an Ironman. They're like, oh, have fun on your marathon. And you're like, yeah, whatever. Okay, you think it's a marathon. But what an Ironman actually is it starts with a 2.4-mile swim, and then immediately you get changed and head out on the bike for 112 miles. And then after that, you do the marathon, which is 26.2 miles for a grand total of 140.6 miles.
I'm exhausted just from that description.
Yeah. So I did the same race in 2018, the Ironman Lake Placid. It's it's either the hardest or one of the hardest Ironman races that they offer in North America. The hardest race that they offer is in Spain, and I'll probably never do it because I've heard just nightmares about it. So my goal this year, well, what would have been last year, everything got postponed to this year because of COVID, was just to beat my time from 2018, which I was successful in. However, they created a much harder course this year due to construction. So what ended up, so even though I beat my time by 40 minutes, by the time I got to the 21st mile of the marathon, my body was like, you're not running anymore. It's just not happening. And I had to walk the last almost 5 miles. I toughed it out when I got back into town because the way that these loops work, they take you out for 13 miles and then you come back in. And by the time I got back in, I was like, fuck it, I'm going to run. And if I collapse at the finish line, then it is what it is, but I'm running it out. So I ran it out and finished, and then proceeded to fall apart after that.
So how many times did you puke?
I did not puke once.
Okay. How many times did you think to yourself, why did I do this? And I think I might die.
I do that often.
Okay.
I will say this. So by no means is it not a physical race. It's obviously a very physical, demanding thing. But one of the things that I really like doing about Ironmans or marathons or any of these endurance stuff is it's a mental game. I was told years ago by an old MMA instructor, he gave me the advice of your mind will quit long before your body will. and I test that theory. I like testing that theory. That's the crazy person in me, is like I want to see what can like mentally break me. So when I like my body stopped letting me run at 21 miles, like 5 miles from the finish line, and I was like, nah, I'm stubborn. I'm finishing this race, and I walked it out. I finished the damn race. So that's like where when I wanted to see if I can get to a point where both my mind and body are like, now you're done. You're just get the hell out of here. And if it never happens, then that's cool. But if it happens, like, I'll know. So, but unfortunately, last year getting canceled, I signed up for a race this year, not realizing that I was going to double it up. So 9 weeks apart, I'm going to do 2 full Ironmans. The next one is in Chattanooga, Tennessee, the last weekend of September.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I wish you luck.
Yeah.
And do me a favor, don't collapse, don't die. Come back, talk to us about it.
All right, yeah. Yeah, Chattanooga will be fun because I'll have something to compare to, because I only know, as far as the full distances, I only know Lake Placid now, which is also a race that I'm never doing again. It is a race. It's a beautiful. If you've never been to the Adirondacks, I highly recommend it, even for a vacation. Go up to Lake Placid, see that area. It's absolutely stunning.
Been there.
Yeah, it's absolutely stunning. As a matter of fact, my wife and I are going to go back up there at some point just for like a long weekend where I'm not doing a stupid race.
Are you going to get flashbacks? Is it going to be like going into the war?
PTSD.
Yeah. Start shaking. Just sit down for a little bit.
Not again. Not again.
Just start running in the room.
Yeah.
I'm here. I have to run.
She's gonna be hiding in the corner.
So it'll be nice to see a course that's not the same one. So I have something to compare to, and I've also never been to Chattanooga, so that'll be fun. I think. Could be awful. Could be awful.
Questionable.
Yeah. Well,
I don't really do Tennessee, so whatever.
So I met a guy on the course during the run portion who was from Alabama, who lives not like an hour and a half from Chattanooga. He said like 10 years ago that place was a shithole, but some mayor came in town and like really like put a emphasis on like revitalizing it, make it like a tourist area. And now apparently it's like really nice. So, I know there's a shit ton of vegan places, so that's good for me. That's about all I know.
You and your damn vegan food. man, I'm vegan, man.
Yeah, vegan.
I haven't said anything in an hour. I was like, I was going to explode. I was going to explode if I didn't say it
You
once.
probably were going to explode.
Yeah.
Well, no, seriously. Congratulations on finishing the last one, and good luck on the next one.
Yeah, good luck. I'll live vicariously through you while I sit
on the
there and
couch.
eat Oreos on my couch.
I'll send you some federal donuts.
Yeah, I'll get some federal donuts and sit on my couch, and I'll start working out tomorrow. I swear.
Hey, I've been working out at least 2 to 3 times a week for the last month.
That's
so
awesome.
I'm in a t-shirt I haven't been in probably 2 years.
That's all.
Nice.
So we'll see how this goes. I'm attempting to keep it up and maybe stretch it to 3 to 4 days a week if I can. But my schedule is the thing that keeps me from doing it. Between London, between the studio, between my dad, and I have a new job that I have to actually focus on. Like, I just don't have a lot of time. So I get there when I can get there.
I'm looking forward to you running your first Ironman.
So you're going to be looking forward a long, long time. How far into the future? The world will never know, because I'm not going to run one.
Probably around the same time I run my first Ironman.
The idea of sitting on a bike for 112 miles after I just swam, 2.4 miles?
Yep.
Yeah. I wouldn't even get through the 2.4 miles. So, like, we'd never get to the bike part. It just wouldn't happen. And there's no way I'm running 26 miles. When I go to the gym, I try to get my first mile in as fast as possible, and then I run until I hit 20 minutes. So whatever I can get done in 20 minutes is what I do, and that's what I've always done. I don't need any more than that.
And honestly, you don't, because I always tell people, I'm like, one, don't compare it to any of the dumb shit that I do, because what I do is for crazy people, and you should only compete with yourself. And if 20 minutes is what you do, then that's awesome. If I always tell people, because people are like, oh, well, you like do all these Ironmans. I'm like, yeah, that's me. If a 5K is your thing, that's awesome. If deadlifting 500 pounds is what your goal is, that's awesome. If just getting up and moving around for, an hour a day is your thing, that's awesome too. Like, so whatever you're doing is fine by me. If you only run for 20 minutes, you only run for 20 minutes. That's cool.
Yeah, for me, when I started working out, you'll remember, I don't know, I guess I was turning 30, so it was a long time ago, 15 years ago, and I cut like 100 pounds in some short amount of time. My thing was get many miles in as you can in under 25 minutes. But if you can't get 25 minutes, at least do cardio for 20 minutes before you go lift, and then go lift heavy. And just lift everything that you can possibly lift, and then go pass out at home. Like, go home, pass out, whatever. And I found that for me, that's what worked. So I'm just getting myself back to that point.
There you go. I support it.
I'm completely out of this league because I get tired doing the races in Grand Theft Auto. So
trust me, I exhaust myself if I go full on. So I understand getting exhausted, but like for me, it's just I have so many clothes that I can't fucking get in, and I'm so cheap that I'd rather spend $20 going to the gym than like a couple $100 on new clothes, because I can just put the old clothes back on and everything will be fine. So now I'm at the point where my jeans are falling off worse than before, and like I'm fitting in clothes that I haven't fit in a minute. So it's good progress, and I'm feeling good about it, and I'm just gonna keep going.
So what you're saying is, for your birthday, I need to buy you a belt, because I don't want to see your ass flying around when you decide to mosh for your one band a year.
Dude, I'm not moshing at all. I retired.
You say that.
I retired. Like I think about it. Like, so like you say to me, hey, Turmoil's going to play. And I go, oh man, I'm going to tear that up. And then just go stand there and be like, I can't do this to myself right now.
Listen, I told you, I think I told you this. I was definitely thinking about it at that show in Reading.
Really?
When MH Chaos played, I was like almost there, because like my girl and Joe Hardcore were looking at me and laughing like, he's gonna do it, he's gonna do it, he's gonna do it. And then I had flashbacks in my head of like not being able to get out of my bed for 3 days. And I was like, don't do it.
My last thing before I got to roll. Speaking of MH Chaos, that fucking video that Sonny posted today.
I'm not gonna call out who was handing out the smacks, but that was hilarious.
That is the greatest two-piece in history.
It's currently on the front page of Reddit with like 3,000 comments.
I'm sure it's all there's on there.
And one of the best parts of it, because of course been talking about this on Facebook and Instagram all damn day. One of the best parts of it is that dude gets punched. If you haven't seen this video, it's all over. It's all over everywhere now. And the dude is in front of the stage holding a beer, and a dude starts moshing and hits him with a fist, and spills a little bit of the beer, and then hits him with the second fist, and the beer is all over his face.
It's just all everywhere.
And the dude wasn't even upset that he got hit.
No, and he didn't.
He was like,
oh,
sad.
My beer.
Like he had a sad face that his beer was gone.
Right. And everybody's on the internet crying about it. Like,
oh, it's just I saw it and I was in tears laughing.
If that dude was like knocked unconscious, then I could see someone having a problem with it.
But that would be a whole different reaction.
But the dude was all like he was good sport, except for the fact that he probably just lost like an $8 beer like all over his face.
I was gonna say that too. Like it's venue beer is a little pricey, so he was upset. That,
Some guy was like, I feel bad. He's like, that foam says it was good too. Damn.
Damn, that was an import. That was $10. But oh my god, that was so good.
Well, thank you for joining us, John Wren.
Yes, thank you, John Wren.
We were talking earlier, and it's not even like you're a guest anymore. You're just kind of part of the show.
Well,
Yeah, so we
Here
don't
and
get
there.
excited when you come on.
Yeah, it's not like we're like
It's not a special event. It's just like him again.
this guy again. Nah. But yeah, thanks for being here, and thank you to all the listeners as well. Thanks for sitting through our what we said was going to be 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah, 20, 30 minutes. Yeah, okay.
Never is 20 to 30 minutes.
20, 30 minutes. Oh yeah, tell us about your Ironman. Tell us about your wrestling. Tell us about the entire history of pro wrestling ever. Because you guys are old and you've seen a lot of shit. That's the problem. We got too many stories.
See, when I go on Reddit, I don't see this. All I see is just ad after ad after ad for,
I thought you were going to say something else.
Well, you know what I was going to say.
all Lindsay's porn.
Yes. That is exactly what I mean. Like, I'm trying to find this front page of Reddit so that I can see this thing, and I see nothing.
Titties
I can't find
ass.
it. Yeah. I'm just drowning in it right now.
Oh my god.
And with that, we're out of here.
Oh boy, theupgradepodcast.net. We're not on Reddit, sorry. Not that we could tell you. It's secret. For personal use only. Yeah, that's it. Something. Trying to think of something witty, but got nothing. Later.
Later.